We'll introduce them. And then if we can hold questions until the end after the second speaker, they will answer your guys' questions, okay? All right, so our first speaker is Kaylee Castleberry. She's certified peer support specialist and team lead at USARA in Utah County. She's a teen mom, a high school dropout, and a mental health advocate using her lived experience to support and empower others. She's a recovery coach with experience as a sober companion and service on numerous recovery-focused boards. She's a mom, a wife, a daughter, and a friend, and she's proudly been sober for 6 years. Guys, give it up for Kaylee.
Thank you, guys. So my name is Kaylee Castleberry. I am a woman in long-term recovery. I work for USARA, so that's Utah Supports Advocates for Recovery Awareness. So what I do is I'm an advocate. I am in the courts. So for staffing, I am in the family recovery courts and helping advocate for, people that are like your parents. And I also get the opportunity to throw parties and do community engagement things. Sorry, I'm a little nervous, you guys, because it gets a little bit hard to talk about, right? My life is really good now, but let's just go ahead and get the story started. So I was born in Orem. My parents were only married for a year. My dad struggles with some mental health issues and drank a lot when I was growing up. He still works at the same company for longer than I've been alive. So he's a workaholic. He wasn't home a whole lot. And like I said, my parents split up when I was a year old. And so my mom had met my stepdad when I was about 3. They got married. We were still in the temple and I was baptized. So we had a very Mormon religion culture throughout my family life, and things were really good for a while until my stepdad's drug addiction, unfortunately, started to take a toll on our whole family. I remember being about 10 years old, and I started to recognize behaviors in my parents that made me really uncomfortable. It actually scared me. I remember waking up and there would be pictures moved along the walls. I have a memory from my childhood of a cup of milk that had been overspilled, right? And as a kid, I didn't understand what was going on with my family. I eventually moved out and I moved back in with my real dad. We didn't really have a good relationship, but again, I knew something was not right within my home. One day I was at school. I was in 6th grade, and like I said, my dad's a workaholic, so my stepmom picked me up early from school and I went home and my dad was at home, and I instantly knew something was wrong. I immediately started freaking out and asking my dad why he was off work, right? This is the man that if I broke my arm, he would tell the school, hey, call her mom, I'm at work. And so I wanted to know why my dad was home. And he said, we're going to go to your mom's house. And I said, absolutely not. I'm not getting in the car with you until you tell me what's wrong. And I, again, right, I'm in 6th grade. I threw myself on the floor and I started to throw a fit. And I said, I'm not going anywhere until you tell me what's going on. And he finally told me, he said, your dad died. So my stepdad, right, the man that had raised me for the last couple of years, he said, your dad died. And so that means that he overdosed. He overdosed, and it broke my heart. I was very, very angry. I was already angry as a kid, right? But I lost the person who taught me how to ride a bike. I was married in 2024, and my dad did not go to my wedding. My stepdad would have been there to walk me down the aisle, and that was also really hard. So we lost him, and my mom spiraled out of control. I became somewhat of the adult of the family, and my mom started dating individuals that were doing drugs, and my mom started to use drugs. I'm actually a 4th generation addict, so that means that my grandma had a pill problem. My great-grandma had a pill problem. My grandma had some connections to the mafia. They left Utah and went to Vegas for a while and came back to Utah. And then my mom sold drugs. And then obviously I came into some of the same behaviors, right? So 4 generations of people that struggle with being incarcerated, substance abuse, and all the other things that came along with it. The mother-daughter dynamic in my family is not good. So I really struggled with my mom. There was some usage with me and my parents. my mom and her boyfriends, right? And I was young. So I feel like I was kind of set up for failure, right? Because my genetics, my environment, and everything that I had going on was leading to these not safe decisions, right? And none of this really mattered to me at the time. I didn't care. I was, this is like Lil Wayne era, right? Lil Wayne. So we're all cool. We're gangster. We're all doing all these things that are so fun, right? It wasn't until I met my son's dad. I was 16 years old, and he did distribute substances. And so I met him, moved out at 16, did not graduate, got pregnant at 17. And after my son was born, we moved on to harder substances. This caused us to be extremely toxic. I was in a relationship with somebody who put their hands on me. I ended up being homeless or unsheltered up in Salt Lake for 18 months. And unfortunately, with the circumstances, right, that I had at the time, I did a lot of things that I am not proud of. I unfortunately had a conversation with my mom at one point because she heard through the grapevine that I was selling my body for drugs. And I know there's no girls in here, but I'm sharing this because I know that there is men in my life that this has become a problem as well, right? They've experienced sexual abuse. And when you're in these benders or, in these, you're not coherent, a lot of things like that can happen to you, whether you're male or female. That's just what it is. And so we were unsheltered. And it was really difficult. I would steal shoes from Walmart because the soles in my shoes would, right? I'd put holes in my shoes. So I would go into Walmart and I would steal the same shoe. And then the next week I'd have to go back to Walmart and steal another pair of shoes. But I was walking everywhere because I was unsheltered. I had nowhere safe to be. My substance abuse and my drug addiction made it to the point where my anger and everything that I had made it difficult for the people who did love me in my life to be around me. I forgot to mention that, right, when I was younger, I would cut myself. I didn't understand at the time, but I have bipolar. And so when I was younger and I tried to kill myself, I didn't understand that my mental health is why I was having, right, these suicidal ideations of wanting to kill myself. And I'm sure that not having any therapy, not having any support also contributed to that. But this continued, right, into my adulthood. When I was 18, I was arrested on a juvenile warrant. I was somewhere that I should not have been. And they took me to jail, and I saw the judge, and the judge writes a juvenile warrant, and he said, well, good luck, you're an adult now. And that was the end of it. And I, right, still up in Salt Lake, I'm homeless, I'm committing crimes. It wasn't until I finally had a judge look me in my eyes and say, I'm going to send you to prison. Actually, let's back up a little bit. She looked me in my eyes and she said, little girl, I'm going to send you to prison. And at that time, I didn't want to go to prison. I felt like I was too pretty for prison. And so during that time, I also found out that I was pregnant in the Utah County Jail. It's the first time that I had ever cried in jail. I'd been in jail numerous times. I, again, right, was arrested at 18. When I went to Utah County Jail, they knew my family. They were like, wow, you're starting out real early. We know your mom, we know your uncles. And they gave me a really hard time, you guys, when I went to jail. I was just a baby, but they gave me a hard time because of who my family was. And so I was sitting on the bench and I found out I was pregnant. And I was like, well, shit, I have a little kid that I'm already not taking care of. What am I going to do? Right? What am I going to do? I got 3 kids that I'm going to have under the age of 3, and I spent 6 months in jail. So I was 6 months pregnant, got out of jail, found out that I was pregnant with twins, and I decided that I was going to try to do something different. And so I went to treatment, and I was in treatment for 6 hours a day with my son, but it still wasn't enough. I had no car, no job, and no way of taking care of 2 more babies. And so what I decided to do is I placed them for adoption. I was doing really well for about 2 years, completed AP&P. I was the leader of my treatment group. I taught a lot of different classes. I was working 2 jobs. My family was starting to talk to me again. Well, really, honestly, I cut off a lot of my family for a really long time. because a lot of them were not safe. And it wasn't until 2018 that I found out again that I was pregnant with another set of twins. And I was really excited. I had my son. I was doing well. My son's dad had been in and out of prison during that time, and so that was still a very toxic situation. He went back to prison, and I found myself in the same situation. What am I going to do? I'm pregnant with 2 babies and no support. And I moved in with my son's grandma, and unfortunately, she passed away while I was living with her. The one and only woman who was having my back and providing me with a roof over my head and food in my stomach for me and my son. I didn't find her dead, but I was there when she passed and when we found her, and it broke my heart. I ended up going into labor. I went into labor with my twin sons, and they lived to be an hour old. Again, you guys are all boys, but I hope you all know that 1 in 4 women in Utah will lose a baby, whether that is a miscarriage, a stillborn. It's just the sad reality of the situation. But it broke me. It really, really, truly broke me. Because I thought that, and we talk about higher power, right? And so I'd had somewhat of a spiritual awakening. But then I found myself super lost again because I have no support. And so I had the funeral for my sons. It wasn't until Christmas Eve of 2018 that I actually didn't find a way to relapse. Unfortunately, because I'm an addict and my son's father told me on the phone that there was substances in his wallet, the first thing that I did when I got off the phone with him is I searched my room for those substances. And I used them. And I'll tell you what, it didn't make me feel any better. Not at all. It actually made me feel worse. I felt that I was doing my children no justice or not living right in their memory. And so I made a conscious decision to choose recovery. I make a living amends every day in my recovery for my sons that I've lost and for my dad. And along the way, I've also lost a lot of people. My cousin Brookie, talked to her the night before she overdosed. My cousin Tyler, my cousin Billy, the first person I ever loved, overdosed, and he was down in a hotel in Provo by himself. He was left there by himself. So I've lost a lot of people, But then I met Sean, and he actually made me go to treatment. He made me go to therapy. And I went into that treatment center, and I was so angry, and I told them all every terrible, mean word I could think of, and I was mean, right? But they decided to let me stay. And they helped me get some treatment that I desperately needed. And I was in grief counseling, and I'm actually still in counseling to this day. But they were hard on me, but they loved me afterwards. And I really needed it, right? Because for so long, I was a victim of everything that had happened to me. Everything was everybody else's fault but my own. Because, right, my genetics, my environment, it's everybody else's fault but mine. But it really helped. And then he asked me if I wanted to go to a pancake thing for recovery. And I flat out told him, you guys, I was like, no, you're weird. Like, I'm not going with you. Absolutely not. And he started to be of service with Addicts Fighting Back. And slowly but surely, I got involved and I started being of service. And we started doing outreach at the hotels. So for people who are also unsheltered, we bring them meals, we bring them food. Snacks, right? A hot meal. We bring them hygiene, we bring them clothing and connection, right? We talk to them like they're just a person because that's all they are. It's just another human being going through something in their life. And I think we've all been through something in our lives. So we need to choose kindness, especially for those that are going through more than we are. But it really changed my perspective, and slowly I became less angry. I got a good job. I was making really good money. We continued to do all this AFB stuff. I got pregnant with my daughter. And so right with that adoption story and losing those girls, I was really excited. And so we had a daughter, we got married, and things just continued to get better for us. Like I said, I'm a certified peer support specialist. 2 years ago, I got the opportunity to go to Florida and make $800 a day to babysit somebody, some rich person in Florida. It was the coolest experience that I've ever had. And I found myself having another spiritual awakening, right? Because I realized in that moment, like, wow, everything that I have been through, all the things that have happened to me, I'm here in this place helping another person find the light, right? And she told me, she said, I want to have peace like you. And it just kind of threw me off because I never really thought that I was a peaceful person, right? I'm still not a very easy person to deal with most days. But she told me that she wanted the peace that I had. And in that moment, I realized that I had something that could help other people. So I was working full time at a sales center, but I decided that I wanted to get into recovery. And so I went and I found this gentleman, unfortunately, that gave me the job out in Florida, was a really shady individual. And I haven't always been a good person in my life, right? But I do think that I'm a good person today, and I will not hurt another person no matter how much money you pay me. I didn't feel like the way that he was practicing was right. And I stood my ground in that. And that was also kind of a weird moment, right? Because I really thought that I was going to be able to get my family into a different tax bracket and help us in different ways. That, I was like, wow, this is just such a dream come true. But at the end of the day, I realized the 4 days that I was there with that woman, she didn't get a phone call from one person. So she was alone, right? She had no support. And so I realized in that moment that I was like, wow, like, it's not about money. It's not about materialistic things. I can want these things and these things are great to have, but it's about the fact that I have 10 people on my phone that I can call right now if I have any type of problem. Being in recovery, I realized that I get to be whoever I want to be. And I have a lot of people that love me and they support me today. And that's because every day I make a conscious decision to do something different. I'm not always perfect, right? Sometimes I make mistakes, but every day I try to be better than the next. And started working at Recovery Ways as a med tech. Within a year, I moved up to case management. Hadn't even been there a year. The same day that I got offered the USARA position, they also gave me another raise in position at Recovery Ways. But again, I didn't care about the money. I really wanted to help people, and I knew that this opportunity at USARA was going to be amazing. And I was right, because they paid for me to go back to school. I want you guys to know that I'm a high school dropout. I was working in the medical field and in the courtrooms before I even had a GED. Not because of any other thing than my lived experience. So everything that I went through had a purpose in a way, right? It hurt and it still hurts sometimes. But there was a purpose in everything that I had been through. And now I'm the lead. I haven't even been at USARA for a year. So I moved up, promotion, and I get to run that building. I get to spend every single day helping people, whether it be someone who's unsheltered, whether it be someone who has mental health problems. They may have a substance abuse disorder, but I get to help them, and I actually don't have to charge them anything. I don't have to turn anybody away. And I'm super grateful because today, again, like I said, I have such a beautiful life that I don't know how I made it out necessarily. I'm super grateful that I did. And again, right, I had my husband who helped get me the treatment and help that I desperately needed. But a big factor too that I learned is that my parents did the best that they could with what they had. And sometimes that still doesn't feel good knowing that, because there was a lot of things that happened that were really wrong. But I also learned that, again, I'm not a victim. And now that I'm an adult, my life is whatever I put into it, not the things that I've been through. A couple weeks ago, and my mom's in recovery now, and she actually lives with us, but a couple weeks ago, our landlord hadn't been paying on the heat or something, and there was a notice of turning it off. And my mom came up to me crying, and she said, your kids don't have any idea what that's like. And I said, absolutely not. Because when I was a kid, there was times that the water was shut off, that we didn't have food, right? Basic necessities, basic human rights. And I was like, you're right. No, they don't have any idea. And it hasn't been easy, but I'm just grateful that today I'm in a place that I get to come and talk to people and kind of just discuss advocacy and stigma and making sure that, the policies and procedures that are in place for us, they're not always right. And so my goal is to fight for those to change so that it's easier for all of us to get the resources and the help that we desperately need. And that's about it. I don't even know how long I've been. So
This is Sean Castleberry. He grew up in Utah, experienced traumas at a young age, such as parents divorcing, death of loved ones. He struggled with substance abuse and mental health issues for 17 years. He has over 25 incarcerations in county jails, which eventually led to a prison sentence. He got out of prison with a mindset to make changes. He's been clean for 8.5 years. He went back to school, got married, and got a second chance at being a dad. He helped start a nonprofit organization called Addicts Fighting Back, where they are able to help others give back to a community that he took from for so many years. Guys, give it up for Sean.
I hate the way I sound on the microphone. Will you guys give it up for Kaylee one more time? And just to make sure you guys are awake, how many of you guys struggle with substance abuse? How many of you guys are struggling with being in and out of facilities? Well, I hope you know that when I leave here, I want you guys to see that change is possible. You don't have to do this no more. Today could be the last day that you keep going in and out of these cycles and in and out of these facilities, because change is possible. And if I can do it, anybody can do it. If Kaylee can do it, anybody can do it. Like Stephen said, I was born here in Utah, born and raised. I've traveled outside of Utah a couple times to venture and dabble in some things, but I've always made my way back. I grew up in Utah County, Provo, Springville. At the age of 2, my parents divorced. My dad packed his things. He moved to California, and I didn't talk to him again until I was 8 years old. So my mom was single for most of that time, right? So she was working multiple jobs just to try to provide a life for me and my little brothers. I'm the oldest of 6. I have 4 little brothers and 1 little sister. The 2 youngest are twins. They didn't come into life until I was about 16. But for the most part, like I said, my mom was struggling to provide for the other boys, for me, my other little brother, and my other little brother, right? And of course, she would get with their dads, and it would be they would be the stepdad or whatever you wanted to call it, but they weren't really father figures. They were kind of into drugs and stuff themselves, and so they weren't very good role models for me. I spent a lot of time at my grandparents' house because my mom worked so much. I had an uncle that was 8 years older than me, and an uncle that was 6 years older than me. So in my eyes, they were my role models, right? I wanted to do everything they did. They played sports. I played sports. They taught me how to play sports. When I was young, no matter what season it was, whether it was football season, whether it was basketball season, whether it was baseball season, you could find me with a ball in my hand from the time the sun came up till the time the sun went down. That's what I did. I like to play ball. I'm a big 49ers fan. I'm a big Yankees fan. Let's go. Let's go. It was embarrassing. I mean, I shouldn't admit that after last weekend, but it is what it is. We did the best with what we had. But anyways, so I grew up kind of like Kaylee said. I grew up in a pretty Mormon family. You know what I mean? I wasn't extremely poor by any means, but I still didn't have the best childhood. But again, like Kaylee said, I did the best. My mom did the best with what she had. She busted her ass to make sure that I had shoes on my feet, clothes to wear to school, new clothes to go back to school, food on the table, right? And like I said, I spent a lot of time at my grandparents' house with my uncles, and I was coming home from school in 5th grade one day, and it's kind of similar to Kaylee's story. I walked in the house, and my mom was sitting there, and she was bawling hysterically. And it took me a good 5 or 10 minutes to try to get her to tell me what had happened, and my uncle had passed away. And again, I was extremely close to my uncle. He was one of my heroes. And this was clear back in 1994. I'm a lot older than you guys. 94 was a different time. Drugs weren't really huge in Utah. There wasn't any treatment centers. I'm sure there was AA and NA meetings, but there wasn't a lot of treatment centers, right? So it was like a shock to me that somebody had died from a drug overdose. I didn't know what drugs was. I was 11 years old. I didn't know what heroin was. I didn't know what cocaine was, right? But I knew that took my uncle, and so I knew that I didn't want to ever do that. And then I got to carry my uncle's casket at his funeral. I got to be a pallbearer, not an honorary pallbearer, an actual pallbearer. I was with adults carrying my uncle's casket. He was laid into the ground. That was one of the hardest things I ever went through in my entire life. I still struggle with that today. Like I go to therapy, and these are some of the traumas that I have to work for because I didn't have my dad. So like I deal with a lot of abandonment issues. Everybody that I ever got close to just ends up leaving, right? And so about that same time at 11 years old, that's when I started rebelling. I thought I was a little gangster. Like in the 90s, you have Ice Cube, you have Tupac, you have the Notorious B.I.G., right? I thought I was a gangster. I was out running the streets. I was drinking beer on the weekends. I got an alcohol ticket at 15. I was on the side of 7-Eleven. We thought we were cool. We talked somebody that was 21 into going inside and getting this 40 ounces. And we were sitting right on that side of 7-Eleven, Springville Main Street at 10 o'clock at night. And the cops pulled up. The weird thing is my dad was coming back into my life at the time because he had moved back to Utah. He lived still like 3 hours away, but he was in my neck of the woods for that weekend. So I told the cops that I lived with my dad because I knew that if they called my dad, there wouldn't be I wouldn't get in as much trouble. Like, what's he going to do? You know what I mean? He's not around a lot. He's not going to punish me. So I had him call my dad. And I think that gave me a sense at that point in time of being a little bit untouchable. So that kind of fueled that knucklehead in me, right? Now I can do things, and I can get away with it if I do this, and I can toe this line, and I can get away with things little by little, and I can just keep toeing the line. I can keep doing the bare minimum. But at the same time, like I was still doing good in school. Like I said, I like to play sports, so I was on the high school sports teams, and I had to attend school. I couldn't slough. I had to do just enough so I wouldn't get suspended from the teams, right? But at the time, I was still like experimenting with marijuana. I was still drinking alcohol on the weekends with my friends. This is like 14, 15, 16 years old. I'm getting tobacco tickets from the police. I'm doing community service, just kind of just going through the motions. About 17 years old, I started experimenting with prescription medications. Like me and my friends would steal prescription medications out of their parents' cabinets. We would just want to see what this pill did to us. And we had no idea what it was. We didn't have no idea what it was going to do to us. It could have killed us, but we were just going to try this one just to see what it did. And we were going to try this one. And about the same time, when I was 18, that's when I started like heavily using prescription pills. I was in the Springville High School welding class, and the teacher, we had like a classroom where like we would go meet for a minute, and then there was a shop in the back, and the teacher would always be in the shop, so we could sit in the classroom and do things and get away with it, and the teacher wouldn't see. Or when the teacher was in the classroom, we could go into the welding shop and we could smoke weed because there was these fans that would just suck up the smoke and they would never smell it, right? So I was really turning into a knucklehead. I had an opportunity to go play college football at Dixie College, and I turned that down because I wanted to party. I wanted to party with my friends. I wanted to smoke. I wanted to drink, and I wanted to break the law. I wanted to cause trouble because I thought I was a gangbanger. I thought I was the toughest person in Springville. And so I turned that opportunity down. And at that point, my life went seriously downhill. Like I got really severely addicted to pain medication. I got addicted to opiates, and I couldn't hold down a job. Like I was a mess. I was a complete wreck to society. I was in and out of jail for little things all the time. I would get like disorderly conducts for fighting, or trespassing tickets or speeding tickets, and never pay the fines. And like I would get put in jail on warrants, and then I would get out and I would do the same thing again. My other uncle that was like 6 years older than me, not the one that passed away, but his younger brother, this is tough because I usually go into treatment centers and I usually go back into the jail and share my story there with adults, right? So I'm kind of trying to tailor this story so you guys can relate. So it's kind of tough. So if I backtrack a little bit, or if I, jump around, just be patient with me. But my uncle, he was like one of the top drug dealers in the county for prescription medication. And so like, again, like he was a person I looked up to, and that's who I hung out with. So that's the same thing I did, right? I learned that I didn't have to hold down a job because I could just sell a little bit, enough to keep money in my pocket and enough to support my habit. And again, like I'm still committing crimes on the side. I'm still going to jail and all that time. Like Steven said, I've been booked into Utah County Jail like 25 times. A lot of it's been overnight stays, a couple days here, a couple days there, 6 months here, a 30-day probation violation here, just in and out. And during the time that I was selling drugs, like I would have major crimes parked outside my house, and they would pull people over that left my house, but they like never were able to like catch a case, right? So I just, again, that fed into that sense of I can do this and be untouchable. If I do this, I can just keep flying under the radar. If I do this, like I'll be okay. And that like fueled the sickness in me. It kept me sick for a long time. It kept me in my addiction. And then like my crimes would get a little bit more serious. Like major crimes finally kicked down the door, and they gave my uncle a distribution charge. They didn't get me, but they got him. So then I kind of stopped for a little bit. I met a girl, and I became serious with her. When I met her, she didn't know what drugs were. She didn't know she knew what prescription medications were, but she had never done them, right? And I introduced her to that. And that was probably one of the silliest things I ever did, because now like we're both not having a job. We both don't have a house. We both don't have a job. I already said that, huh? No job, no house. And we just kept like bouncing around from like couch to couch, her mom's couch, her friend's couch, my friend's couch. And like life was not good. Finally, she got pregnant, and that was like my first attempt at becoming a dad, right? So then like to myself, I was like, you know what? I need to change. I need to do something different, and I need to go find a job. I need to get us an apartment, and I need to be a dad now. It's time to man up. And we got this apartment, and we were staying in this apartment. Well, she started having complications with her pregnancy about 4 months into her pregnancy. And after a while, like she started to bleed a little bit. So I took her down to Payson Hospital, and the doctors told us that they were really nice to us the first time we went. They took her up to a room in the hospital, and they told her that they were going to monitor for 4 to 6 hours. And once they realized everything was good, then they sent us home, right? They shouldn't have sent us home, though, because she was not doing good. But they did. They sent us home, and this was on a Tuesday afternoon. And then by Friday, I took her back to the hospital. And this time, when I went to the hospital, same hospital, I was treated like a drug addict. They didn't want to help us. They didn't want to monitor her. They didn't want to look her over. They left her in the emergency room screaming for 4 hours. She was in so much pain, until finally a doctor came in, and the doctor said, you know what? We're going to have to deliver this baby, but the baby's not going to make it. So similar to Kaylee's situation, I had a son that lived for like 45 minutes. She was only 5 months pregnant, so he wasn't big enough to survive. His lungs weren't developed. So that was crushing to me. The only thing that I knew how to do was immediately go down in the parking lot and numb my feelings with drugs. I went down to the parking lot, I called my hook, and I said, hey, come meet me at the hospital. I need to get rid of these feelings. And then that led me down to another spiral, back to the same stuff, back to committing crimes, back to being homeless, back to dealing, back to being a gangbanger, all that stuff. Like it led me back down that path, right? And then she got pregnant again. And so again, I had the same mindset. Man, I need to get us back into an apartment. I need to go get a job. I need to stop what I'm doing. And this was my first like attempt at recovery. So like I went into a doctor and finally admitted to a doctor that I had a problem. And they put me on a medication. They put me on a couple different medications. But then I found out that I could do a little bit of my medication to make me feel fine, and then I could sell the rest. So that's what I was doing for a little bit. I was going to work. I would go to the doctor. I would do a little bit of my prescription. I would sell a little bit of my prescription to put a little bit of money in my pocket. And I lived like that for a really long time. I lived like that from like 18 to 30 years old. And then she had that baby, and life was good, man. Like to me, life was good. Like as you can see, I still wasn't living right, but in my mind, I felt like I was living right. I felt like I was doing okay because I didn't know any better. Like there wasn't as many treatment centers as there are now. Recovery wasn't as big as it was now. I didn't have the resources that I do now. So in my mind, I thought I was doing okay. I came home from work one day, and she had done the same thing. She had gone to the doctor to get on some medications. Her medications were a little bit different than mine. They made her feel a totally different way than my medications made me feel. And when I walked in the room, I could tell that like something was off with her, and I was like, whoa, what did he give you? Right? And to keep this simple, because she was addicted to one substance that did one thing, and I was addicted to a substance that did one thing, we did not get along anymore. We would fight all the time. We would fight to the point that the cops would get called, and the cops would come, and they would think that I was like abusing her or whatever. They would find out that I wasn't, but they would still take me to jail on like disorderly conduct or something. And again, I would do like a couple days, and I would get out, and I would go right back to the same thing. It was a vicious cycle for all of my 20s. Then it turned into some really long jail stays. there's a particular instance where my son was 2 years old at this point in time. I had lost my apartment because I couldn't hold down a job. I was living in a hotel in Provo, the same hotels that we go serve now. I was living there, and they're not a good spot to take a 2-year-old. And I had my son there with me, and his mom would leave for days at a time on her drug binges and come back to the hotels, and the drugs that she was doing would make her in like this psychosis mode where she was not in the right mind. She would think that I had other girls stashed in closets and other girls stashed in cupboards, like outlandish shit, right? Excuse my language, sorry. But she came into the hotel one day and she thought that I had hid a girl in a cupboard no bigger than that 12-inch box right there, which is not possible, but that's what the drugs told her was possible. And she picked up a pair of scissors that was sitting on the counter, and she cut herself across the arm, and she called the cops and told the cops that I stabbed her. So I went outside of the hotel room, and back at this point in time, the particular hotels we were staying at was kind of a party place in the summer. There was a lot of people doing the same thing. There was a lot of people hanging out in the parking lots. We were all one big little, one big group of friends. And so I tried to go outside to where the other people were so I could say, hey, look, will you guys be witnesses that I'm not putting hands on her? And when I did that, one of the guys that was out running around with her doing the things that she liked to do tried to play Captain Save-A-Ho and wanted to fight me. So it's silly. So I'm standing over the top, and not to tell war stories. I'm not trying to tell you guys this to sound cool, but I'm standing over the top of the dude throwing punches at him as the cops come around the corner. And so the cops see what I'm doing. They instantly put me in handcuffs and throw me in the back of the car. Now, when they did that, they didn't search me. For some reason, they didn't search me. They just put the handcuffs on me and threw me in the back of the car. Well, then they start talking to everybody, and they're like, hey, let's figure out what's going on. And they found out that I truly didn't stab her. So now they come to let me go. They take off the handcuffs, and now they decide to search me. And when they searched me, they found drugs in my pocket. So that day I got my first felony charge. I had graduated now from getting all those little misdemeanors, all those little petty crimes, to a felony charge. I was charged with felony drug possession, and they took me to jail. And now when you go to jail on a felony, when you're 18 years old and you go to jail on a felony, it's not just like in and out if you don't have anybody to pay your bail. Like, you're going to sit there for a minute, and you're going to go through a couple court processes until they decide that it's time for you to go. And that was the last day that I seen my son. To this day, it was October 5th, 2014. That was 12 years ago. I haven't seen that little 2-year-old boy since. While I was in jail, I had the Department of Child and Family Services come to my jail cell and tell me that her cousins were going to take him in for the time that I was in jail because they couldn't have kids of their own. And when I got out of jail, then I started experimenting with drugs on a harder level. I started injecting drugs. I hadn't never injected drugs. I had just done prescription drugs, right? So now I'm being a little bit more dangerous with my drug habits. And then because I'm a little bit more dangerous with my drug habits, in my mind and my mentality, I became a little bit more dangerous. So I called the people that had my kid and I said, listen, you're going to let me see my kid, or I'm going to come kick in your door and I'm going to take him because he's mine. And that scared the crap out of him. That plays a big reason into why I haven't still seen him to this day. I scared them. That was that gangster mentality in me that you're not going to stop me from anything. I can do whatever I want. I'm untouchable. And then I was homeless. Me and her were like on the splits. I was homeless. And so I went into what I call survival mode. I did the only thing that I knew how to do, and that was sell drugs to feed my habits, to put a roof over my head, to get me a hotel room for the night. I'm going to sell drugs because it's the only thing I know. It's the only thing I'm good at. And in Provo, Utah, it's not easy to sell drugs. It's much easier to sell drugs in Salt Lake County, right? So then I went up to Salt Lake, where it's a lot easier to do that. Like, there's not as many. It's not as enclosed. The cops aren't as heavy, right? And so I went up to the homeless shelter area in Salt Lake, and I was selling drugs up there. I was working on the streets, doing hand-to-hand transactions, and I sold to an undercover cop. And I caught another felony. Now, at the time, I'm on probation for my other felony that I already got, and I'm running from that. Like, I'm not checking in with my probation officer. I'm not going to my court dates. I'm not doing the treatment that they asked me to do. And so this time I sat in jail for a little bit longer, right? I got a distribution charge now. Your first distribution charge is a second-degree felony. So my first felony for the possession was a third-degree felony. Now I have a second-degree felony. So now things are getting a little bit more serious, right? While I was in jail, this is when treatment in Utah started to pick up. There's starting to be more and more treatment centers. There's starting to be sober livings. It's starting to gain traction. And while I was in jail, my mom's like, look, we're going to get you out, and you're going to go to a sober living facility. Like, I got it lined up for you. You just got to do the 8 months in jail, and then when you get out, you'll go right to sober living. So I was like, okay. So, I did my time, and I got out, and I went to the sober living facility. And I was really, really trying to stay clean while I was in that sober living facility. I was going to 1 or 2 meetings a day. I was going and looking for jobs. I was staying clean. I was doing what they asked me to do. I was doing what the courts wanted me to do, and I was taking it serious. But some of the mentalities that I had still didn't change. I still thought I was tougher than everybody else. I still thought I didn't have to listen to anybody else. I still thought that I could be a gangster, and I still thought that I could chase women, and I thought that I could date multiple girls and life was going to be good. And it wasn't good. Like, after a period of time of doing that and still living that way, then the other stuff came back, and I started using drugs again. And instantly I was kicked out of the sober living house. And again, like, the only thing that I knew how to do to keep myself alive was go back to what I knew. So I went back to the streets, started doing the same thing, homeless, buying hotel rooms, all that jazz. And then I picked up another distribution charge. Now, I know you guys are kind of young, and I don't know if you know much about the law, but every time you get arrested for a crime, it gets enhanced. So my second distribution charge was a first-degree felony. You guys understand what a first-degree felony is? That's a 5 to life. That's the same thing as a murder charge. And I was scared shitless. 17 first-degree felonies? My God. Ow. But anyways, I was scared. We'll have questions in a minute. We're almost to questions. As soon as I get done, you guys can ask me and Kaylee questions, okay? I'm almost done. But when I got that second-degree felony and I had that 5 to life hanging over my head, I was scared shitless. And I sat in jail for 9 months trying to fight that first-degree felony down to the lowest charge I could get. I pled not guilty, and I was just, trying to fight it down and see if I could get the prosecuting attorney to go a little bit lower, because I knew I was in trouble. I had been running from probation for a long time. I had already been threatened with prison. And so while I was in jail, I used for the last time. That was September 13th, 2017. That was the last time I put a substance in my body. That is also my birthday. I've been clean since then. So I had some clean time while I was in jail. And again, my mom came to me and she was like, hey, we're gonna go to court, and we're gonna tell the court that you're going to a treatment center down in St. George, and they'll probably release you. And they did. They let me go to a treatment center. I was in that treatment center for 30 days. So again, I had done 9 months in jail. Now I'm in the treatment center for 30 days. And when I was at the treatment center, I was still doing the same shit. I was still chasing girls. They had these like little MP3 players that they would give you in the treatment center. And when my friends would graduate, I'd take their MP3 player. Why the hell do I need a drawer with 10 MP3 players in it? You know what I mean? I still just had these stupid behaviors that I wasn't figuring out. And I got caught kissing a girl in a pantry of the treatment center, which is a major no-no. They put a blindfold on me for the weekend. Friday night to Monday morning, I had to wear a blindfold. I had to wear a blindfold while I went to the gym. I had to wear a blindfold during groups. I had to wear a blindfold while I ate. The only time I could take off that blindfold is when my head hit the pillow and when I was in the shower. So Monday morning rolls around and I'm sitting in group, and it's probably a little bit smaller than this, maybe 20, 30 people, and we're all in a circle, right? And I have this blindfold on, and I'm waiting for them to call my name so I can take the blindfold off and continue about my treatment, right? And they say, Mr. Castleberry, you can take off your blindfold. And I take off my blindfold, and there's 9 APMP agents sitting in the middle of the room with us. And they took me back to jail because the treatment center was kicking me out for the same damn behaviors that I couldn't get rid of. I just kept doing the same thing. I was stupid. I was clean. I wasn't using drugs no more, but I still thought that I was above the law. And I knew that I was going to go to prison this time. Like, that was what the judge told me. Hey, I'm going to let you go to this treatment center, but if you don't finish this treatment, you're going to go to prison. And I was sick to my stomach, man. I was sick to my stomach. I was in St. George. I had to sit in St. George jail for 3 days, and then I had to go back to Utah County Jail, and I had to go in front of the judge, and I kept like trying to just delay the process a little bit. I would go to a court date and I would tell him that I wasn't ready or whatever, or see what options I had. Can we explore this option? Can we do this? Can we do this? So she would push it out another 2 weeks, and she'd push it out another 2 weeks, and she'd push it out another 2 weeks. And that went on for 2 months. And after that 2 months, I had the same treatment center that kicked me out. They said, hey, we'll give you another chance. We'll come to your court date. We'll see if the judge will let you come back to the treatment center. So I'm like, oh, yes, you know what I mean? I skated it again. I'm all good. They're just going to let me out to treatment center. I'm going to do the same shit. Life's good. I was excited. I called my family, and I was like, hey, meet me at court. Come to court. Be my support. They're going to let me go back to treatment. And I went in front of the judge, and she said, no, Mr. Castleberry, I'm not giving you another chance. I'm sentencing you to the Utah State Prison. My mom made a noise in that courtroom when she said that I will never forget. That was my rock bottom. That was the moment that I decided that I was sick of my own shit. I went back to the Utah County Jail. 2 days later, they put me on a van to transfer me up to the prison. And I remember it clearly that I was driving to the prison. I was looking at the mountains, and I was like, man, I can't do this no more. I can't do this no more. I'm 30-something years old. Like, something's got to change. Like, I know how to change. I can't do this no more. So when I went to prison, I didn't join any gangs. I didn't join any white gangs. I didn't join any black gangs. I didn't join any brown gangs. I didn't join any gangs. Drugs are easier to find in prison than they are on the streets. I didn't do an ounce of drugs while I was in prison. I wanted to make a change. When I was in prison, I found people that wanted to do the same thing that I wanted to do. They wanted to do their time. They wanted to work out. They wanted to go to classes, and they wanted to go home and go back to their families. So again, I had done 9 months in jail, 30 days in treatment, so I wasn't ever free, and now I went and did prison. I was in prison for 13 months. So about 2 years I was locked down. About the time that I got my parole date and they told me that I was going to be able to leave, my mom, God bless her soul, man, she's always been on my side. She's never left my side. That lady's a saint. And I put that lady through hell. I put her through hell. She's pretty lucky that none of her sons overdosed and died, because I've had a lot of my friends overdose and die. I know a lot of people that have overdosed and died. And so she's like, hey, we're going to get you into another sober living when you graduate here, or when you get released here. When I got released from prison, I didn't have to go to sober living. I didn't have to go to treatment. I already had almost 2 years clean, but I did because I didn't want to do the same things. So I went out and I went to an 18-month-long program on my own. I went to an 18-month-long outpatient program. I went to sober living. While I was in sober living, I met Kaylee, and we had it rough. Like she said, I had to take her to treatment and get her approved by my therapist just so we could date. But I still did the right things. I was in sober living for a good 15 months while we dated, and at any time I could have left, any time I could have moved out, because it wasn't required by my parole officer for me to be in that program, but I didn't, because I learned something when I was in sober living. They told me that wait for somebody else to tell you it's time to leave. Don't wait for when I want to leave, because my ideas got me to where I was. My ideas are trash. My ideas are garbage. They got me in trouble all those years. So I waited till one of my friends said, hey, you're probably good to move out now. Or my therapist said, hey, you're probably good to move out now. At the tail end of my sober living, I got invited to a pancake fundraiser, and I met this guy, and he's like, hey, I'm going to start this Facebook group. I'm going to call it Addicts Fighting Back, and we're just going to be a Facebook group for people that just need help. We're just going to be there for each other. And I was like, okay. He's like, well, so he starts it, and then like he notices that I'm posting on there a lot. He notices that I'm interacting with people, and so he's like, hey, man, like I want to make you an admin in this Facebook group. So now I'm an admin. And then after a while, we decided that rather than just be a Facebook group, we were going to go back into the community and we were going to serve the homeless. We're going to get clothing donations and take them clothing donations. We're going to make food. And we did this all out of our own pocket, I have a job now. Like I was making $10 an hour when I got out of prison. I made $10 an hour for a year straight. It wasn't shit. It was enough to pay my rent. It was enough to pay my treatment. And it was enough to put a little bit of money in my pocket, enough to ride the bus up to see Kaylee. And but it worked, It was something different that I had never done before. I worked for $10 an hour for like a year. And then I went to $13 an hour for another year and a half. And at the same time, while this is going on, we decided that we were going to apply for the state for this Facebook group to become a nonprofit. And at the time, we're like, you know what? They're not going to give a nonprofit to a bunch of felons and drug addicts and gangsters. They're not going to do all that. And they did. They approved us, and we were like celebrating the day that they approved us. Like now, all these junkies are something special in Utah. Like we do amazing things. We go on trips. I play softball in many states. I played softball in Las Vegas. I played softball in Colorado. We go on trips all the time. Like Kaylee said, she's been to Florida. And I just kept putting one foot in front of the other. My mom told me something that stuck with me that I'll never forget. She said, just always make sure you're doing the next right thing, no matter what that looks like. Just do the next right thing, whether it's 60 seconds in front of you, whether it's a week in front of you, whether it's the next day. All you got to do is just get through that moment doing the next right thing, right? And so I did that. And then eventually I got a better job. And I worked that job for a little bit. That's where I met Trevor. I was going to the gym in Spanish Fork. I was building cars at this company. And I met Trevor down there, and we became friends. I'd see him at the gym every morning. We'd talk every morning. And then I moved away from that spot. We still are friends on Facebook. He actually mentioned to Steven about me, which is pretty cool. It's a small world. But I just kept doing the little things, right? And then finally, me and Kaylee got married. We got pregnant with our daughter first. And that was a second chance at being a dad, man. Like, that was so cool. Like, Kaylee already had a son, and that was another chance at being a dad. And then having my own kid was another chance at being my dad. And I took that serious. That was like my purpose in life. Finding a purpose is the greatest thing that ever happened to me. Like, I found something that was greater than me, something that I'm not willing to give up and go back to the street life for, because I'm not willing to throw away everything that I've worked for. I ended up going back to school. I never thought in a million years, when I was laying in that prison bunk, you guys, I never thought that I was going to be a dad again. I never thought I was going to be a dad to a little girl. I never thought I was going to get married. I never thought I was going to go back to school. And I went back to school, and I'm an electrician now. I make great money. I'm allowed in $10 million houses up in Park City. Like, they trust me to go in their gated community. They trust me to go in their house. And that's because of the work that I do on a daily basis to better myself. And so I want to let you guys know, like, I'm glad that I got to come here today. No offense, ladies, but I'm glad I got to come here and talk to you boys, because I can see myself in you guys. I can see that, like, I'm sure you guys love sports. You're boys, right? And I'm sure you guys are sick of doing this. I'm sure you're sick of being in and out of group homes and facilities. But I do want you to know that you can do this. You just got to make the change, and you got to want it within yourself. One thing that kept me the way that I was for a long time is because I was a people pleaser. I only cared about what my friends thought. I only wanted to be cool in front of my friends. And today, I don't have to do that because I love myself. I love myself, so I don't care what anybody else thinks. As long as I'm happy, as long as my wife's happy, and as long as my little kids are happy, life's good. I don't have to care what anybody thinks of me. And another thing is, when I got out of prison, I changed everything about myself. I changed the music that I listen to. I don't listen to rap no more. Sometimes when I listen to the gym, I'll throw on like some Eminem or Tupac because it gets me hype, right? But now I listen to reggae because I found that spreading love is greater than that hate that I had in my heart for so long. It makes me a better person. It makes me feel better when I lay my head down at night. I'm not really a religious person, but I do have a higher power. And I found a higher power inside of a jail cell, man. Like, a lot of people find a higher power in a church. I found mine inside of a jail cell, and that's what works for me. So I just want you guys to know, like, if you're sick of your own shit, you just got to do the next right thing. You just got to move forward today. Like, it starts today. It doesn't matter. Like, in the grand scheme of things, where you guys are at now is such a small time frame in the grand scheme of things. 30-day treatment, 60-day treatment, 8-month treatment. It's just such a small time frame. Just got to commit to make that change, and it starts today. Thank you, guys.
Guys, we're gonna do a lot. We're gonna do questions and answers. So I'm gonna give this microphone back to Kaylee, and then keep it on, because then you guys both microphones can work at the same time. But what I'll have them do, Sean, is if they ask you guys a question, just repeat the question back so that those on the live stream can hear the question. Okay. And then, yeah, guys, ask the questions, and then they are going to, if there's something where you don't want to ask them right now, they will come into your guys' classrooms, like all of our guest speakers, afterwards to come and rotate. So if there's something that you'd rather wait until, he's excited. If there's something you guys want to wait until later to ask them, then go ahead and wait. But
I want you guys to know, I really like it when you ask questions. So please ask questions. I don't care what they are. They all have a valid point, right? I want you guys to ask questions because I have ADD. I struggle with ADD really bad. So I skip over major parts of my story. And then when you guys ask questions, it helps me reel it back in a little bit. What's your name again? Adam.
So, really good question.
Is it for me or for her?
It's for,
Okay. We'll both answer then.
So basically, you know, like, you guys went to like jail and stuff, you know, like, what was your first impression and like, you know, like, your first impression and how you thought after and how you thought when you were in there?
My first impression of jail when I went there, how I thought after, and how I thought while I was in there. I'll answer and then I'll let her answer. With my mentality, when I walked into jail, I thought I had to be the toughest person in the room. I can't let this person disrespect me. I can't let that slide, right? Because that was my mentality at the time. Sorry, what? I thought I had to be the toughest person in the room. I thought every single person was disrespecting me. I thought the cop was disrespecting me. I thought the guy on the next bunk was disrespecting me. And that's a silly way of living, you know what I mean? Like today I'm a grown up, and if I feel that way about somebody, I'm in a place where I can say, hey, you're making me feel this way. And then we can talk about it about like men and we can resolve it. Does that answer your question?
For me, again, yeah, same thing. It wasn't a big deal. It was like a coming of age thing. My uncle came and picked me up, right? I talked about how the officers were giving me a hard time of who my family members were. We threw a party after. But again, right, I had to learn the hard way and be in situations in jail that by the time I was pregnant in jail and had no money and was continuing going to jail, it got not fun pretty quick.
You're welcome. Thank you, Adam. Come on.
No other questions? You guys are like always up on questions.
What's your name? Taylor. That's right. That's a great question. He asked if I had any plans to reach out to my son. So his mom, his adopted mom, but his mom, sure. Not the mom that I was with, but his new mom, right? She follows me on Facebook, and I've got to a point in my recovery that she sees the work that I'm doing on Facebook because I post a lot, you know what I mean? She sees the stuff that I'm doing to better my life, and she sees the person I am today, because I guarantee you I'm not the same person today that I was all those years ago. I'm not the same person today when I lost him. I'm not the same person today when I threatened to kick in her door. I'm not even the same person today that walked out of those prison gates, because I was still kind of a knucklehead when I walked out of the prison gates a little bit. It took that 18 months in that treatment center. But she sees the work that I'm doing today, that she reaches out to me, and we message back and forth from time to time on Facebook. And like she'll tell me how good I'm doing, or she'll even ask me for advice. Like she asked me for advice, like, how do I deal with a teen parent? I don't know. I've never dealt with a teen before. Our son's like 12 years old, and he's a handful, and I'm learning real quick. But it's pretty cool to have that interaction with her. You know what I mean? He is going through therapy right now, and it's getting to the point where he's old enough that he's got to be ready, right? It's not about when I'm ready. I did the damage, and so it's none of my business when he's ready. But I got to be the best version of myself when that day comes, right? So that's another thing that keeps me going. And part of the stuff that I do is because I don't know when that day is going to come, but I know when that day comes that I got to be the best Sean that there is for him and for me, so he can see that, right? What's your name again? Dakota. Oh, self-value. That's a great question. How did I find self-value in myself? I'm going to answer this. I'm going to let her answer this one too. So I did an assignment, and I challenge you guys to do this assignment. Maybe your leaders here will jump on this assignment. When I was in treatment, there was an assignment where I had to write down 30 values and 30 issues, right? 30 issues that I had and 30 values that I had. I'll tell you what, Dakota, it was a lot easier to name 30 things on why I was a piece of shit instead of 30 things I valued. Once I spent like 2 or 3 weeks and I did that assignment and I found my 30 values, I started living each and every one of those values, and I still do today. And those values do change a little bit, right? But they just get better and better. Like those values became greater. And that's how I found value, is because I dug deep inside of me and said, what do I value? I value honesty. I value trust. I value communication. I value self-love. I value my health. You know what I mean? And they evolve and they grow and they become greater. It's like a snowball effect. Once you get that little 30 core values, they're going to evolve, and you'll see a big game changer. That was one of the best assignments I ever did.
How
Hold
did
on.
I find self-love? That's a good one. Honestly, I'll be honest, I still kind of struggle with that one a little bit, right? I think for me, figuring out that my mental health and like having an understanding of why I felt certain ways about myself, like I have a lot of negative self-talk, my brain races, and then right throughout the things that I've done through my addiction, I've had a lot of guilt and shame. I think for me though, when my mom had a heart attack in the Utah County Jail, I learned that, and got her into recovery, I learned that my mom was also a woman in recovery. And so forgiving her really helped love myself and forgive myself as a parent as well, because that's kind of why I told you guys that, right? Like she did the best that she could. And now that she's a woman in recovery, I've learned to give her grace too.
It's a great question.
Sean, I got a question for you guys.
All right, shoot.
Someone is looking to get help. How do they get a hold of you guys? What
So,
are some of the resources you guys?
that's an actual question you have right now?
No, that's for me.
Oh,
I know what you guys do, but I want them to know.
you have both of our numbers. Kaylee is a recovery coach. That's what she does on a daily basis. That's her hourly wage. She gets paid. One thing about myself and Kaylee is in our recovery, we have done a lot of networking with other facilities, other treatment facilities. As the vice president of Addicts Fighting Back, I like to toot my own horn and say that's kind of what I specialize in, is having a bunch of different resources, knowing what resources are available, knowing what treatment centers take what insurance, knowing where to send somebody for this mental health or this substance or this detox or whatever. And we both have
So probably
so many resources.
The best way would be to go to Addicts Fighting Back on Facebook, and then also use Sarah as well, where you'll be able to find my business number, and or anytime someone comments on Addicts Fighting Back, that's something like, for example, I run the office, so no one's there today, and so a lot of the times I'll be like, hey, if you need immediate assistance, please reach out to Addicts Fighting Back. It's a really great resource.
Yeah, my number is always available. That's one thing that I do. One of the big things that helped me stay clean for a long time was being of service to other people. That's why we started going and feeding the homeless. That's why we started doing the things that we do, because I like to be of service to other individuals. It fills my cup. It makes me feel love. And so, like, when me and Kaylee say that our phones are available 24/7 for people that are struggling, we mean it, because it helps us be of service to other people that are struggling with the resources that we didn't have.
For me, I like to say that I chase recovery like I used to chase drugs. So that's kind of where I go with it.
Right here in the back. Stealing? I'll let her answer that. I wasn't a big stealer.
You get a rush, right? So find other things that fill that, right? For me, I go and do polar plunging. That's something I really like. I like to work out. I go and hang out with my friends. And honestly, too, I had that, right, victim mentality that when I'd steal from Walmart, I'd be like, wow, like they have the money to pay for it. It's not worth it, right? Like my freedom and everything I've worked for, it's not worth a $10 something that I can wait for. I think when we have that instant gratification, we want something when we want it, but it will make you stronger if you work for it, if you earn it.
Absolutely.
Right?
I was just actually going to take the microphone back and say that it's such a great feeling when I go to work and I can go home and I can buy my kids whatever they want, or I can go buy a brand new pair of shoes, right? It's a way better feeling than walking into a store feeling nervous and feeling anxious that I might get caught or whatever. So that was a good question. Thank you for making me think for a minute. Adam again, right? Adam. And we'll go here next. But you guys better think of some questions over there. Come on. Adam.
So basically, like, how do you get out the mentality of like gang mentality? You know, because gang mentality is a very serious mentality too. You know, it's like,
It is serious. His question for those on the live stream was, how did I get out of the gang mentality? It's because, like, I just got sick of having hate in my heart, man. You know what I mean? I was never at peace when I had hate in my heart. When I was sitting in prison, I got this thought one day that as long as I was free up here, it didn't matter that I was in the cell. It didn't matter that I was locked up. As long as I found peace up here, then I was free anywhere. You know what I mean? I was able to do my time a lot easier. I was able to think a lot clearly. And then I like that feeling. I like that feeling of loving my fellow friend more than I do of hating them and wanting to fight them all the time. You know what I mean? And it even builds on that today. Like I noticed that my days are better when, like, each and every one of you guys walked in the room. I came up and said, "Hey, brother, my name's Sean," right? Because that makes me feel better, and it makes you feel better that I see you. You know what I mean? I don't see you as the opposition. I see you as a friend. I see you as a brother, right? And it makes me feel better, and in turn, it makes the other human feel better. And then it just makes us a better the human race all around, because we can all admit, and I know you guys are young, but I know you guys know that the world is a shitty place right now, right? The only thing that's going to conquer what's going on in the world right now is more love, for sure. He was next. Yeah. Sorry, what was your name again? Taylor. So I'm going to let us both answer this again because I think we can both give you great answers. Absolutely, I had those thoughts for the long time. So that's 100% normal to feel within the first year of being clean. It's called post-acute withdrawal symptoms. You might not feel sick, you might not feel anything, but you're still going to have those thoughts and you're still going to have those wants, right? But once you start like talking about it, right? Like you need to get you a circle of friends where you can say, "Hey man, I'm struggling today. I feel like I want to get high." And then that friend's in a good enough place that they can talk you out of it, right? But that comes within yourself. Like you got to be honest. When you're having those feelings, you got to be honest with another human being and say, "Hey, this is how I'm feeling. This is how I'm feeling." And when you talk about it like that, then it's going to take the power out of it. Then you're going to have a moment where you come down and you're like, "All right, maybe I don't got to no more. Yeah, I want to, but maybe I don't have to anymore." You know what I mean? And then after a long period of time of doing that, it's going to get easier and it's going to get easier and it's going to get easier. And then like me, you're going to build a life that you're not going to want to throw away. I promise you. You can't pay me to get high today because I don't want to throw away what I've built. Hold on one sec. We got one over here. I'm going to let her answer that one. And we got one over here and then you.
Something I did actually forget to talk about in my story is, unlike my husband, I actually was on a medication called Suboxone. It was really hard for me to also get off, right? I was a single mom. I was the only one working. How am I going to go to treatment? I didn't get the opportunity to go to treatment. And so I used a medication and I did all the things I was supposed to, right? Completed everything through court, went to treatment, got some therapy. And then once I hit about a year and a half, then I got off of that medication. So harm reduction for me is what really helped. But then sometimes, right, when I do have moments that I want to use, I will go work out, I will polar plunge, and like he said, I will call people that I need.
Because I promise you, like if you go to Steven and you say, "Hey, man, I'm struggling, I feel like I want to get high," he's not going to get mad at you. He's going to look at you with compassion and he's going to try to help you through that moment. It was right here. What was your name again? Soren. How do I stop distributing drugs? Well, the first one is I was scared shitless to go to prison. Like that's real. You know what I mean? When I went to the county jail, I had this thought, right? Like in jail, they can only hold you so long. When you go to prison, they can actually hold you forever if they want. You know what I mean? So that was pretty scary. But like, I just got sick of living that lifestyle. It's hard because it's easy, right? And like I said, it's all I knew for a long time. And I liked the things that came with it. I liked going to the strip clubs. I liked going to the mall and blowing all this money. I liked all that stuff. But once I found the same piece that I was just talking about a minute ago, and I started actually working and like working for myself and working a job, that feeling inside was just a lot better than I got from selling drugs, right? And the fact of the matter today is the drugs that are on the streets today are scary. People are going to die. Like, that's one thing that I'm not willing to do anymore.
Talk about the bill and stuff. If you get caught selling fentanyl.
Oh, I mean, if you get caught selling fentanyl today, like that's a federal charge and it's a manslaughter charge, right? So the game of drugs is also evolving and people are dying. And I don't want to sell you something that's going to kill you. You know what I mean? I don't want to have to go to your funeral and look at your mom crying because I sold you something that killed you. You know what I mean? It's just, it's a scary place. It's a war, and I would rather be on the side of the fence that I'm on now instead of being caught up in that. You know what I mean?
I mean, if you want to make good money, make good money, I promise. I need $800 to go sit with a lady and babysitter a day, you know? So if that's what it is, and like I said, you want to change like what your family's, you know, generational crap has been, go to school. You know, you can start early now. There's trade schools. Electricians are going to be the millionaires of the future.
You don't got to go to
peer
college.
support. You know, if you want to travel and get paid to do something like that, there's so many opportunities out there that because of what you've been through, you can actually use that.
One thing is you don't got to go to college to be successful in this life. Like I told you guys, I made $10 an hour 6 years ago. I made $10 an hour for a year, and then I made $13 an hour for another year and a half. I make $32.50 an hour right now. And it's not too late. It's definitely not too late for you guys. If I can go back to school in my 30s and be successful now, you guys can do it for sure. Purple shirt. What was your name again? Caleb. What's up, dude?
How hard was it to not get the gang culture when you were in prison?
Oh man, that's a good question. How hard was it to not get caught up with the gang culture while I was in prison? That was tough. It was really tough. I really, really thought that I wanted to, and I'm going to be completely honest. It's not like I just was like, gangs. Oh, sorry, I wasn't supposed to use that word for sure. I wasn't supposed to use that word. I apologize. I'm so sorry. So sorry. Okay. It's not like I was, let's be real, it's not like I was like that. Did I hang out with gang members? Sure. Did I work out with gang members? Did I conversate with gang members? Sure. But I was not willing to catch more time for somebody else. I wasn't willing to do more time for somebody else's beliefs. You know what I mean? I wanted to do my time and I wanted to go home. Yeah. What's your name again? Maddox.
How did you overcome mental health issues?
Oh, well, Maddox, how did I overcome mental health issues? We're both definitely going to answer this one. I didn't. I still struggle with ADD bad. I still struggle with depression from time to time, right?
See how he's popping around?
See how I walk around like that? I talk a million miles per hour. Before you guys even came in here, me, Steven, and Kaylee were talking, and I was like interrupting her every time she went to say something. It's because I still struggle. But like I told him, I'm honest with it. I can tell her, hey, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I interrupted you. My ADD's off the wall right now. I'm nervous. I got anxiety. You know what I mean? I've learned a lot of tools to work through it. And I can speak for her, and I'm going to let her still answer, but we know we have grace and compassion for ourselves when we're going through those things, and we know that it's just we can get through it. The time will pass, and we'll be okay. You know what I mean? It's okay to not be okay. It's okay to be depressed. It's okay to have anxiety. It's okay to have ADD. It's okay, it's okay to have those things, and and it's also okay to talk about those things with your friends.
Therapy is great. It helps a lot. Also, I think it's really important for all of you, right, to stay connected with a doctor, because if there is a need for medications, like for me, for my bipolar, I have to be on medications. If I'm not on medications, it gets worse to the point that, right, I want to end my life, and I don't want to end my life because I have a really good life. And even realizing all the good things that I have in my life, and I still get anxiety and I still struggle with it, it's because it's mental health, and there's nothing I can do about it other than box breathing, working on different coping skills, and talking to people when I feel like I'm in a scary place. You had a question?
What was your name again? Easton. I'm going to repeat that question. That's an awesome question. His question was, while I am out helping other addicts, do I ever run across other addicts that I knew while I was using, and do I end up helping them? All the time. All the time. And you know what? It is so fulfilling. And it's also fulfilling when I walk into a store and I see somebody that I used to get high with, and they're like, holy cow, I don't even recognize you. You're not the same person. Because now I know that my work's good, right? That my work within myself is honest, and it shows on the outside of the world. But like, at the same time, like, I can't save everybody, right? They got to be able to do the work too. And I will give them resources and I will show them the path, but they got to walk down that path themselves. I mean, with friends, right? We don't got to walk the path alone, but they need to put in the work to do it, right? One quick question, kind of to piggyback off his question. Do you guys know what the opposite of addiction is? Anybody know what the opposite of addiction is? Right here. What? The opposite of addiction is connection. The opposite of addiction is connection. That means that you can be honest with your friends about how you're feeling and what you're going through, and it does not make you a lesser human being. It does not make you soft. It does not make you it doesn't make you less of a human being. I caught myself that time. You see that? You like that? It's okay to be honest about what you're going through, guys. It's okay to help each other. It's okay to have feelings. It's okay to have emotions. It's part of being a human. It doesn't make you a sissy. You know what I mean?
Well, I didn't answer that question.
What?
I was going to answer that person's question.
What question? Oh, his question. Hold on. Kaylee wanted to answer his question.
I just was going to tell you about a really awkward situation I had in court a few weeks ago. I met a lady that I was there to help, right? And I get paid to help. A long time ago, I threatened her life. Don't know why. I just remember that I was very unkind to this person, and it was very embarrassing. But all I could do in that moment is say, hey, I am so sorry that I did that. I was in active addiction. Now I'm in recovery. Please don't fault me for that. I also want to help you, and I'm here to help you if you would like. But if not, I understand.
Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
What is it like being on the opposite side of the process?
I still, notice when I first started talking, my voice started to shake. Still, when I go up and talk to the judge, my voice shakes like that every time. A couple weeks ago, though, I had a really cool situation where, I talked about changing policies and procedures. I got the opportunity to go up and talk to my judges and tell them what I thought about what I had learned. And it was totally against what they were wanting to do. And I really thought that DCFS was going to be like, hey, chick, you need to put yourself in your place. What are you doing? And they hear me. So to be on the other side and have a judge really hear me and hear what I want to implement for change is so powerful.
One of the coolest experiences that I have in my recovery is we get to play softball with cops sometimes. We'll have addicts versus cops games, and it's so cool to be out there because I promise you it's a lot cooler being on the same team. Because when you're on the same team, now the people that don't understand addiction, now the people that don't know what we truly go through, now they start to learn, and now our world can become a better place, right? If they start to learn people like this LDS community of Utah that we live in, right? They don't know what it's like but eventually that will come into their life, whether it's their little kid, whether it's their cousin, whether it's their friend. Eventually somebody's going to struggle with addiction, and then they'll know how to handle it better next time.
How do you explain, or how do you deal with pressure, peer pressure, outside pressure? For instance, someone walks up to you and starts calling you every day, the book right in your face, and is calling you on or throwing up signs. How do you not react to that or walk away and with knowing that you're not?
Yeah, I was going to use that word. Thank you. How I deal with that is because, for one, feelings aren't facts. Just because you feel that way about me doesn't make me the way you feel about me. That doesn't mean it's true, right? And also, I still struggle with reaction a lot. I am not perfect. I still have a temper. I'm still human. I still say things out of my mouth a lot faster than my mind processes it. I still hurt people's feelings from time to time, but I'm still honest about it, right? I can still say, oh, shit, man, I messed up. I'm sorry I acted that way. I'm sorry I made you feel that way, or whatever. And then I just got to a point where I don't care what other people really think about me. You know what I mean?
That's what these guys need to learn.
Absolutely. I don't care what anybody thinks about me. I don't care if I walk out of here and you guys say, man, that guy's a sissy because he didn't join any gangs in prison. I don't care. You know what I mean? My life's good today because of the honest work that I put in. You want to answer that one?
Well, yeah.
Okay. God, she gets sick of my crap.
I do. But I mean, I'm not going to jail for anybody other than my kids. That's it. I ain't going to jail for nobody but my kids. I've been there, done it, got the t-shirt, not going back. I tell Sean all the time, guess what? I am not going hard. I am going home every single time.
Your priorities are at home.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Yes.
Well, and I also just, right, like, I know what being, and I didn't do a lot of time, but it will wear you down, and I truly don't believe that people can handle being incarcerated for that long of a time. I think it really wears down on you as a person, your mental health, and your humanity. And so just, you guys are way better than that. You don't need to be in those situations.
Hold on. He's got one back here. What's your name? Clint.
And I've got a question for you with, I know to be an electrician, you got to do a lot of studying.
Yes.
Your ADHD, what skill, what tool did you use to help you get through that?
What tools do I use with my studying to help me get through my ADD? The short answer is ChatGPT. No, honestly, like, I've just had to buckle down. We kind of, and it's changed a little bit because the first 2 years of my career, I actually had some accountability, and I was like, hey, I'm not going to do good at online school. I'm not going to be able to structure myself and take some accountability. So I went to in-person school for the first 2 years of my career, and I'm still going to school. I have a year left. But this last year I've switched to online school. And when I've switched to online school, like, I set a boundary with Kaylee and I set a boundary with the kids. Like, look, this is the night of the week that I'm going to dedicate to online school, or that I'm going to dedicate to schooling. And I take that serious, and I sit down and I do my school. A lot of stuff as an electrician I learned in the field. That's the valuable stuff. I'm a hands-on learner. So the stuff that I learn out there is more valuable than the school books. The school books really, like, is honestly just to keep the state happy and get my license, right? So it's hard. It's definitely a challenge. I get caught with the online school. Like, I'll be watching the video, and I was just telling her about this the other night. The instructor, I hope to God he's not watching Steven's live, but the instructor is like a nerdy guy that likes to clear his throat after everything he says, and it makes me lose interest really fast. And sometimes I'll scroll out and be looking on Facebook while he's talking, but can usually dial it in pretty quick and take it serious. It's a struggle. Living with ADD sucks. You know what I mean? But the great thing about it is I understand it more today, right? I can get through it today without a medication because I've learned tools to cope with it, and it's just a part of me. Hold on. Well, they both raised their hands simultaneously. He hasn't asked one yet. Him? Go ahead. What, up here. Am I stronger than Trevor? I don't know, dude. I have a freaking hurt kind of shoulder right now, and it kind of sucks, so I'm not able to really go strong on my push days. But
You want to see your muscles. You want to see your building. You want to see your six-pack.
hey, like I said, I was 152 pounds. I'm 6'5". I was 152 pounds the last time I booked in a jail. I actually have the booking photo on my phone. If there's time in your classroom and you want to see it, I'll show you. I look like a walking skeleton. The reason why I started working out is because when I even told Steven this when we were walking in here, the reason why I started working out was because I was so dope sick and so skinny that I couldn't even shut my own cell door. And I just decided I wanted to make a change. I started working out, and I work out more for my mental health than my looks, to be honest. It does a lot more for me up here than it does. And I got to keep my body young because I have a 4-year-old daughter that is absolutely wild. So